In this lecture, we're going to discuss another paid feature of ChatGPT, which they call the advanced analytics, aka the former code interpret. What is it? In its simplest form, what they have done basically is that they have allowed the large language model within ChatGPT access to a sandbox environment, which allows it to write and execute code using Python in a specific environment within the ChatGPT interface. So if you recall from our ChatGPT for programming video, we asked GPT to write the code for us to create the hangman game for the word count, and we copied the code into Google Colab and we played it there to get the output that we were looking for. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use this advanced analytics feature to run the code within the ChatGPT interface without leaving it and getting the answer right there for us. So let's start. Now in this lecture, I'm going to cover a couple of different tools that can come out to be handy with advanced analytics. First, I'm going to do a few visualizations. Then I'll show you how to edit images, videos, and GIFs using the code interpreter or advanced analytics. We'll also build a word count app, but this time within the GPT. We'll learn how to analyze text in PDF files, summarize them and use them for different purposes. And lastly, we'll do some statistical measures for data analysis folks, such as calculating the t-value and p-value and testing out hypothesis and carrying out the regression analysis. Keep in mind, I won't write a single line of code and I will do everything within the ChatGPT interface this time using the specific feature. So let's start by creating a very simple visualization of the NVIDIA stock. Over here on the screen, you'll see I've opened Yahoo Finance and you see the NVIDIA stock. I went to historical data and I can see the data here for a specific timeline based on the dates that I've chosen for daily price. Now, if I click apply, it selects the data and then when I download, it downloads it in a CSV form. Now, if I go to ChatGPT, what I did was I imported this CSV file here into ChatGPT and I wrote the prompt, plot the time series chart for NVIDIA stock using closing price. Now, I specifically said closing price here because if you look at the data, there are multiple different prices available. We have open, high, low, close, and adjusted close, plus the volume. If I did not say closing price, maybe ChatGPT would have drawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lines, which would be very similar to each other. So to keep it simple and straight, I specified the column that I want to be used for drawing my graph, and here it is. I can zoom in and see it drew the graph for me for the date range that I selected from 2023 to 2024. And as we all know, NVIDIA stock price has been on tremendous upward trend from like less than 300 to more than 1,000 within this specific time. Next, let's try and create a word count app within ChatGPT. And this time it's going to be a one small single prompt. So all I need to do is it's the same text that we have been using for the word count in different spots. And it's the same question, how many words does this text contain? Now this time, instead of making a guess or counting the number of words, what ChatGPT is doing, it's writing code. And that code is essentially doing the job of counting the number of words and giving us the answer that we're looking for. How does it do the word count? Basically, essentially what it's doing is it's picking up this text and it's separating it based on spaces. So after Australia, there is a space and then has, and then there is a space. So it splits wherever there is a space and then it takes the count of the number of splits it has done. That gives us the word count. Essentially, it was the same thing that an online tool would do. And now we can do this using code interpreter. And we know that we got the right answer of 75 because that's the answer that we got from the external tool as well. Next, let's try and mess around with images. I have this cute dog image. I can paste it into ChatGPT. I can ask it convert into black and white using code, and it will go and do the job for us. And GPT comes back giving us a black and white version of that image. Now, an important point to note here is that I did not use the image generation model to do this. If I did that, the image would be completely different. I'm asking GPT to use Python to write a set of code to convert the image color to black and white, and that's why the image is exactly the same. Same prompt for an image generation model will completely change the image. So keep that in mind. Now, another powerful use case when it comes to images is to convert format and size of images, which we usually do through code. Now, one of the specific use cases that comes to my mind is we use code to edit images size and the type of the file they are. Specifically, when we're working in e-commerce universe, we want the files to be we want the images to be WebP and 30 KB because that's the optimal size for performance. So I can ask ChatGPT to do that for me too. Now, although it first ran into an error when it was trying to do the job, and you can see what sort of code it tried and how it failed in achieving it, But end of the day, it went for a retry and it was able to get me the image that I'm looking for here. So we plot the graphs, we did the images. Now let's try working with videos and GIFs. So now I uploaded 2 images of the dog. It could be any image that you want. And I wrote a prompt, convert this into a GIF. And now you can see that ChatGPT is writing the code to get the job done and create these images into a GIF for us. Now our GIF is ready and I can download it using this link below. Similarly, you can create video slides using code as well. You can say, I have 3 images. I want to create a 6-second video from it. Spend 2 seconds on each one with smooth transitions, and with a few iterations, you'll be able to get a video out of ChatGPT based on those images that you provided as the input. Next, we can also create QR codes using ChatGPT. Here I wrote, can you create a QR code for udemy.com? And now what I expect it to do is either using the DALL-E version, the image model, or the code interpreter, it will create a QR code for me. Actually, because it's going into the analyzing mode, I believe it's writing the code using the specific import QR code library to convert this udemy.com link into a QR code image. Now my output is ready, and if I click on it, I will be able to access the QR code. Now we worked with images, visualizations, GIFs, videos, QR codes. Let's slightly change gears and let's see how do we analyze large amount of text using this code interpreter that ChatGPT might not be able to with a simple copy paste. So what I will do is I will upload this file, which is essentially an Microsoft annual report, which is essentially a 100-page report on Microsoft annual report 2023. It's such a big report that if I tried using it, it will take me weeks and weeks to go through all the data. What I can do is I can upload this PDF file for the Microsoft annual earning into ChatGPT, followed by a prompt, write a blog post summarizing the key takeaways, use markdown language from MSFT report. Now what GPT will do is it will read the 100-page report, extract relevant details from it, feed it to the large language model, and then summarize the text for me. And I expect a huge answer because it's a huge report, so it might not be able to do it in a couple of lines. It will probably be a page or two, given the complexity and the length of the report that we're working with here. GPT comes back with a really nice condensed summary of the entire report, starting from the introduction to embracing technology change, financial highlights, and so on and so forth, covering a couple of different products. It also ends with a really nice disclaimer that the summary is a condensed version of the Microsoft annual report, intended to provide a general overview only. The last and the most important thing that I want to cover with this specific feature of advanced analytics is how to perform data analysis and statistical tests using this feature, which could be really powerful if you work with a lot of data. So to do that, let's look at our NVIDIA example again. Over here, you see there's date and we have different prices for the day and the volume traded in that specific day. So as you see that the volume also is a column here, which is not being used by the previous graph that we built. Because I'm a finance student and I always had this curiosity when I saw these graphs that if the volume is in an increasing trend, does that mean that my price will also increase, or the other way around? If the volume decreased, for instance here from 43 to 36, does that mean that my price will also decrease? Because here I see that the price did go down from 894 to 889 when volume went down from 43,000 to 36,000. Is there a relationship between two variables? Let's pose this question to ChatGPT and see what it says. So here what I'll do is I'll write a prompt saying when the volume goes up, the stock price goes up. Test this hypothesis for me based on the NVIDIA stock step by step. Of course, I'm adding step by step here because I always want to see the workings of how the model is behaving. And here I can upload the same NVIDIA CSV again. Now, once I send in this prompt, GPT will come up with an idea of how to conduct a statistical analysis to test the hypothesis of whether the stock price and the stock volume are correlated or not. My understanding and my guess is that it's going to use a correlation. If the two have a very strong correlation, the correlation coefficient will be above 0.7. If it's less than 0.7, then there is no relationship. So that's the kind of the test that I expect GPT to do in this specific scenario. So the first thing it does, it labels out what are the different columns. Then it says, okay, to do this, I'm going to calculate the correlation coefficient between volume and the closing price. And it comes back with the answer of 0.256, which is less than 0.7. So it says it's a weak positive correlation. Therefore, my hypothesis failed. Now let's try a different example. And this time I'm going to do it using regression analysis. So let's say that I have this data set and this data set contains a lot of loan data. So it tells you a couple of different variables about a specific person who applied for the loan. And then it tells you whether the loan was approved or was it rejected. This is a Kaggle data set and you'll find the link in the description below. Now, all I need to do is say EDA. What does EDA means? ADA stands for exploratory data analysis. GPT is smart enough to understand what exploratory data analysis steps are, and I expect it to go through all those steps and come up with a few descriptive statistics about the data set for us. Now, once I ask ChatGPT to perform an EDA for me, it goes on and lists down all the columns that I have here in my data set. Then suddenly, as it happens with GPT quite often, it stopped responding. So I just said, okay, go ahead. And then it continued with the same analysis. Now, first it gives us the summary statistics for all the calls. For instance, it says the loan ID range is from 1900 to 2990. The applicant income has this much. Gross maximum income is 81,000. Similarly for different variables. Then it goes on and plots a few of these graphs for us. For example, the distribution of application income. So more people are making less than 100 than more than 100. Here, distribution of co-applicant income, and so on and so forth. Next, what I did was I asked ChatGPT to develop a programming solution that can assist loan providers in analyzing new loan applications. And we're going to do this by applying regression analysis. And then I asked it to tell me the insights from the model, who's getting approved and who's likely to get rejected, how well does the model perform. So essentially what I'm saying is the job now is to predict whether a loan will be approved or not based on the attributes we have for each loan approver. So first develop a regression analysis, then tell me based on the attributes, who's getting approved and who's not. Is it single males? Is it females who are married and have a decent job? So these kind of starts. And lastly, give me an idea of how well does the regression model that we created behaves. Now, sometimes you'll come across the scenario too where GPT will give you two different responses and ask you to choose from one. And it's essentially OpenAI trying to test out which prompt is better. Now, of course, I'm going to go with response 1 in this case because 2 actually ended up with an error. So it gives us a few model insights that credit history, married, education, gender dependence, and self-employed are some of the variables that drives it the most. And then it talks about who's getting approved, applicants with a good credit history, married applicants, and those with a higher level of education such as graduates. Of course, this is very basic common sense and it makes sense so far. Now it's talking about model performance next, where it says that it predicted 10 out of 13 rejections. It got them wrong by 3. And then it predicted 35 out of 37 approvals. So it got only 2 wrong. So that's a pretty decent model. If I look at it in a percentage term, we are performing above 90%, which is very decent for any AI data science model in this scenario. And then it suggests a few potential improvements on how we can further fine tune and improve the model if we want. Now, if I want, I can provide it details for a new applicant based on the same attributes that we have in our training data set. And I can ask it, do you think whether it will get approved or it won't? And it is expected to respond with a 90% accuracy based on the model that we have built using the code interpreter. So a quick recap before we move on. Code Interpreter or Advanced Analytics provides ChatGPT the option to run code in a sandbox environment within the ChatGPT interface. We can use it to create visualizations and plots, to edit images, videos, and GIFs, to create small apps such as word count app, analyze text in PDF files and summarize it, long text that might be very difficult for us to read without that, and perform statistical and data analysis that can range from a simple p-value test or hypothesis testing all the way to data science projects such as regression modeling.